Hello, my name is Andrew Surwilo. I'm the CEO of cybersecurity software company Cytex. I've been getting a lot of questions from auto dealerships about compliance and the new FTC rules. So today we're going to discuss the Federal Trade Commission standards for safeguarding customer information and the FTC's safeguard rules, specifically how those apply to auto dealerships. So we'll begin today with a general overview of the safeguard rule, followed by a description of a manageable roadmap to compliance, which will include the published deadlines. Next, we'll touch on the cost and consequence of non-compliance. I thought it would also be useful to give an illustrative example of what the cost of an actual data breach are, regardless of the safeguard rule. So we'll touch on that. And then finally, we'll discuss how compliance automation and compliance automation tools can simplify and protect your data in business and get you compliant a lot faster than you normally would on your own. So let's start by understanding what the safeguard rule is. The safeguard rule is a regulation that requires financial institutions and certain other companies, including auto dealerships, to have measures in place to protect consumer information. This includes implementing policies and procedures to ensure the security of consumer information and protecting against unauthorized use or access or disclosure of that information. So generally, this requires auto dealerships to have reasonable security measures in place to protect consumer information. I emphasize reasonable because their regulators often use somewhat vague language or imprecise language to give some latitude in terms of compliance and enforcement. But these things include implementing physical, electronic, and administrative safeguards to protect against unauthorized access, use, or disclosure of this information. Some examples, this is not an exhaustive list, but some of the examples of these safeguards include keeping consumer information in secure locations, eliminating access to authorized personnel only, encrypting consumer information transmitted electronically. I would add that at rest, encrypting at rest is a best practice as well. Regularly monitoring and testing the security of the dealership systems and networks, having written policies in place outlining the dealership's information security practices. I added a note down here because the safeguard rule, it's not a one-size-fit-all regulation. There are specific measures depending on the size and scope of your dealership and information that your organization handles. So again, not one size fits all. And so you need to be aware of that so you can customize your security compliance and security protocols. So that brings us to a roadmap to compliance. You'll see two dates here, December 9th, 2022, which obviously has passed, and then June 9th, 2023. The December 9th date is actually the original deadline. FTC realized that there was a lot of confusion and not just confusion, but there was really a lack of information that circulated within the industry. So it was reasonable for them to extend the deadline to June 9th. However, December of last year, you did need to have the bullets listed here in place. Don't panic if you're not there yet. Certainly organizations like our own can help you get there. But the original deadline of December 9th was extended. So there actually is now a two-step process for compliance, the first of which should already be in place, which includes having your policies and procedures and guidelines in place, implementing access controls, having an inventory of your data assets, encryption of data, custom apps that meet the FTC standards, which are generally the NIST standards, multi-factor authentication, storage and destruction of personal information, change management, and also the logging of transaction logs. So even if you're not there yet, a roadmap for your dealership to comply with the rule may include the following steps. First, assessing your dealership's current information security practice, identifying gaps and vulnerabilities. Some organizations are hiring third parties to do assessments. You can do that. That's certainly common practice. But there are automation tools and companies out there that provide compliance automation that can do that, and 80% of it is automated. So I would recommend taking a look at those solutions first. You need to develop a written information security plan that includes administrative, physical, and technical safeguards to protect customer information. Employees need to be trained on your security policies. It's also helpful to have an ongoing security training program. There's some phishing simulation software out there that is that's quite useful for that. But those need to be in line with and customized to meet your own personal security standards. You need to implement measures to protect customer information, firewalls, DNS firewalls is highly recommended, encryption and intrusion detection systems also are best practice. You need to regularly monitor and test your dealership's information and security systems, update your written information security plans to reflect changes in your technology. So anytime you bring in something new, if you have a new standard operating procedure, that needs to be reflected in your information security plan as well. And then you need to regularly test your systems for compliance. So incident response plan is always necessary in any compliance regimen, and frankly, just best practices for data security. The other consumer facing issue that you should address right away is opt-out rights for your customers. That's something that should have been implemented back in December. If you haven't done so already, that really is something that's a hot button for not just FTCs, but also for states attorneys general. So I would strongly recommend taking a look at that and tackling that almost first. Also, it's important to understand that compliance with FTC Safeguard Rule, it's an ongoing process. It's not a one-time event. So your dealership should regularly review and update information, your security plan, and also test your systems and test your plans on a regular basis. So what's the cost of non-compliance? I get this question, and it usually comes in this form. What's the downside? What's the downside if we don't comply? It's drastic. I not recommended, but that's the short answer. But more specifically, the cost of the auto dealership, it goes beyond just the fines and penalties, which are meaningful. Maximum fine, 11,000 per day per occurrence of a breach, and then consent violations in terms of your customers opting out of their data being shared. Any violation there also significant, over 43,000 per day per violation as well. So just the fines alone make it a priority to be compliant. You don't want to be the poster child for an FTC inquiry. You don't want to be the subject of an AG inquiry, and you certainly don't want to be target of plaintiff's attorneys. So that's the litigation risk we have listed here. The other thing is reputation damage. If you're subject to an investigation or an inquiry, there's a certain amount of reputation damage that goes along that. Really, nobody wants that. So really the purpose of the FTC rule is to protect your business as well as the information that your customers entrust you with. Tangentially to what I was just talking about in terms of protecting your own organization, what is the cost of a data breach, regardless of the FTC regulation and any fines that might come there? One of the Gartner research statistics is that over 40% of small businesses who are subject to a data breach or a cybercrime will go out of business within 6 months. So there's a real cost to a data breach and to cyber threats. Cost of inaction generally, not taking care of your network and not taking care of your data. Ransomware costs are significant, running in the six figures on average. It's higher in some industries than others. Loss of productivity, the average of 16 days downtime for your business, a considerable amount of lost profitability and lost productivity. And then again, reputation risk. In the auto industry and in any direct-to-consumer selling industry, your reputation is really everything. Word of mouth is everything. And so you want to make sure that you're following best practices so that your customers understand that you really take this seriously, and the costs are, again, significant. We do live in, unfortunately, a litigious society. So plaintiffs' attorneys are often looking for smaller enterprises that they know don't have the resources to fight. So again, you need to be aware of that as well, unfortunately. But again, I thought it was just important for us to take a look at the cost of data breach on its own. I think the good news is there are solutions. We're putting this on not just for information purposes, but also to let you know that we have a solution out there that can help automate and make this process much easier for you, much easier for your organization. Cytex is a platform solution. So it replaces over a dozen different disparate applications. So it eliminates application sprawl. But also all of the things we talked about in terms of network security, cloud security, data supply chain security, encryption, compliance with FTC. These are things that our system, 80% of those things we can automate immediately. And those things that we can't automate, such as the policies and procedures, we have a repository of over 50 documents that can be customized for your organization. So again, compliance doesn't have to be a complete nightmare. There are organizations like Cytex out there that can help, and you'll find the cost much more reasonable than hiring third-party consultants to do risk assessments and so forth. And again, the system is built to be manageable for someone who doesn't even have an IT degree. So thank you for your time today. Lastly, I did want to leave you with these resources. The FTC does have guidance on their website. So here's a link to the FTC's website directly. And then the NAD put together an educational piece on what dealerships need to know regarding the FTC safeguards. And then also, if you're interested, we have our Cytex link to demo. Please go to the site and fill out your information. And we're happy to walk you through our system and how we might be able to help. With that, thank you so much. And I hope you, I wish you an outstanding 2023, and I hope your businesses grow. And we'll see you soon.